I hope y'all know how hard it was to get dressed and put myself together, put on some makeup and come in front of this camera. And I'm gonna try not to script this. I'm gonna try to just speak from my heart right now. It is with a heavy heart that I am coming to you guys, but I feel called to make this video because I think there's something that's keeping us stuck as a community, and I want to speak on that. I want to offer some clarity, offer some direction, offer some hope. There's some kids, hold on. So yesterday I went on my stories and I asked you guys to submit some questions that you had, what you needed clarity on. And I got one message that really evoked some emotions in me and really I felt called to respond to. And so I just decided to go with this message, and I'm going to go ahead and read it for you guys, and then I'm going to share my thoughts on it. So it reads, here's the thing. I've been reading a lot, following new people, and doing some thoughtful work on myself these past few days. I've learned tons more than I knew before about concepts such as centrism and all the psychological tricks, if that's what you want to call them, that us white folks use. Intellectualism, proclaiming to be non-racist instead of anti-racist, and the list goes on. I have signed petitions. I'm making decisions regarding what books I will purchase next for myself and my kids, as well as how I can best help. Is it volunteerism, donations of time or money, or both? I am aware this is beginning to sound centrist in and of itself, but please hear me out. I feel so bad. Bad doesn't begin to describe it. Ignorant, ashamed, naive, privileged in a way I never imagined. So ashamed that I have always kept up with current events and knew that Black lives were disproportionately getting arrested and killed by cops, but I never did anything beyond reading about it. How can I feel confident in my decision to do something now and not get swallowed up in my shame? I ask you this as much because you are a therapist and a Black woman. I know that on my social media I have been pushing you guys. I have been pushing you guys to get uncomfortable and confront things that you've never confronted before. And I know that this work is messy. I know that this work feels very uncomfortable, and that a lot of you guys are feeling a lot of what we call white shame. Starting to do what, quote unquote, I'm calling you guys to do, which is to do the work, right? To educate yourself on systematic oppression in our white history, and oppression and domination and white supremacy that has been alive and well for centuries. I'm calling you guys to address your own white privilege, your own biases, your own stereotypes, and your own history of staying silent. I'm calling on you guys to not only be not racist, but anti-racist, which is to fight against all of those who are racist. And I'm calling on you guys to confront people in your inner circles, your friends, your family members who are racist, right? I'm calling on you guys to do a lot of hard work. And I know what comes up is a lot of guilt and a lot of shame. And that is what's keeping you guys stuck. And I think that is what has been preventing you guys from speaking up in the first place, right? You see all this news, you're aware of this, little bits of here and there. You get shameful, right? You feel attacked, and you shut it down and you move away, right? Because we're designed by nature as human beings to avoid pain, right? None of us likes to feel pain. We don't like to feel a lot of shame and guilt. But what then happens is we dismiss it and we stay silent, and we are inadvertently contributing to the problem that we have in America. So I want to talk about that. I don't know what I want to say here, but all I am calling you guys is to look at this a little bit longer. I'm calling on you guys to stay uncomfortable for just a little bit longer, right? To do the hard things that you haven't had to do before because of your white privilege. I want to talk about white privilege, and I think that this is where a lot of the work starts, is acknowledging it, acknowledging that you inherently have privilege, whether you like it or not, whether you chose to have it or not, it is inherently with you. And I love this quote by Bell Hooks, which, by the way, if you have not read any of her books, you need to go read them. I'm going to make a list of books that I recommend as well as books the community has recommended. I'm going to make a list for you guys so you can start this work. But she says here, she says, privilege is not in it of itself bad. What matters is what we do with privilege. We have to share our resources and take direction about how to use our privilege in ways that empower those who lack it. Okay? So having it in and of itself is not bad. It's what we do with it, right? It's how we confront it and take action. And I love this. I want to also I have some quotes to share with you guys because I think that they're so powerful. And here's another quote, and I'm going to tag this article because I think it's a really helpful read for you guys. But they say, we need to be clear that there is no such thing as giving up one's privilege to be outside of the system. One is always in the system. The only question is whether one is a part of the system in a way that challenges or strengthens the status quo. Privilege is not something I take and which therefore have the option of not taking. It is something that society gives me. And unless I change the institutions which give it to me, they will continue to give it. And I will continue to have it, however noble and egalitarian my intentions. And then they go on to say that it's hard because white people don't feel that powerful, right? They're like, what do you mean I have privilege? And they equate it to, asking a fish to notice water or asking a bird to notice air. Right? It's a lot easier for the people who don't have privilege to notice it rather than the people who are inherently given the privilege, right? And so a lot of this work is acknowledging your own privilege and then doing something good with it, which is a lot of it speaking out, being an activist, being anti-racist, making a change. And first, it starts with changing your heart. I know that a lot of you guys are asking for checklists. You're asking for children's books. You're asking me for talking points on how to talk to your children about race. And yes, okay, we can get there. But I don't want to skip over this part. I feel like if I jump to how we have these conversations with our kids, I am inadvertently excusing you guys from doing the work. And that is not what I want to do. I want to challenge you guys to first look within, and not for a couple days, not for a couple weeks. I want you to commit to this work as being lifelong work, but I want you to start it. And I want you to start it like earnestly, right? Not just, okay, let me hurry up and quickly read through these books so that I can figure out what I want to do with my kid, right? Because as I said last week on Friday in my talk with you guys on Instagram, that it's not enough to read a couple children's books and have a couple talks with our children. We have to actually walk the walk, right? Because a lot of what they trust and believe and emulate is through our actions. And so us trying to hurry through this process is doing a huge disservice to not only ourselves, but our children and our community and Black people as a whole. You have to do this work, y'all. You have to do it. We are begging you as a Black community for y'all to stand up, hear us, and take a stand and commit to doing this work. And a lot of this work has to do with your own hearts. A lot of this work is about challenging your own beliefs, your own stereotypes, your own privilege. It's about learning and educating. And I'm sorry, but you cannot do that in a couple days. So I don't want to skip through this process. There is no easy fix to this. And I will keep saying that until I'm blue in the face. There is no shortcuts to this work. And if you're struggling to find the right words to say to your kids, if you're struggling to know how to confront these conversations with your family members and your friends, then that means you haven't done the work long enough, boo-boo. You haven't done it yet. Okay? That means you need to go back to the drawing board. You need to read a couple more books. You need to read a couple more articles. You need to watch a couple more documentaries. You need to listen to some more black music. And you need to listen and educate yourself, okay? Because I'm not going to take responsibility for this for y'all. I know there was some huge questions, but there is so much resources on this internet, y'all. We are living in an information age, okay? It has never been so easy to pick up our phones, grab our laptops and our tablets, and educate ourselves. So I need y'all to do this work. And I need y'all to stop taking shortcuts. Please. I know that I am a page all about quick tips and tricks, but when we are talking about something so huge, so ingrained as racism, white supremacy, and white privilege, white domination, systemic oppression, there is no checklist, there is no children's books, there is no quick tips for this, boo-boo. So please do not come to me and ask me for that. There might be other pages out there that will give you those answers to those questions, but I want you to hear me loud and clear. If it has never been clear, I want you to hear it now. It needs to start with you, and it needs to start with you doing the work. Do the work. We're counting on you. And you know who else is counting on you? Your children. They're watching you. They're watching your actions. They're watching what you're reading, what you're learning about, who's coming in and out of your home, what your circle looks like, what kind of music you listen to, what kind of conversations you have at the dinner table, and whether or not you speak up. That's what they're watching. No children's book is going to help you with that. Not if it doesn't add up. Not if it doesn't match up. And so getting back to white shame and white guilt, I think what we need to do is we need to sit in it a little bit longer. Now, there's a fine line between wallowing it and having pity parties for ourselves and then actually taking action. But I think a big part of this work is to get uncomfortable and to allow ourselves to get uncomfortable. You guys know I always talk about how we need to allow our children to feel their feelings. Well, we need to do the same for ourselves, because if we skip over this, right, if we try to minimize it and push it away, then what we're going to do is inadvertently try to just ignore all that's going on in the world, right? Because it's too uncomfortable, it's too painful for us. And instead, I'm going to challenge you guys to sit with it, reflect on it, right? Journal about it, talk about it, get a therapist if you need to help you process through this. But do the work that's behind this. And then take action, right? Volunteer. Keep doing the actions that are needed, right? Like volunteering in your community, making sure you're around diverse communities, and really making honest efforts to have a diverse social circle. And that's only going to come with time. There's no quick fixes for this, right? So I know you guys have a lot of questions about, well, how do I do that honestly and make sure that it's not misinterpreted? Well, you do it honestly by really making an effort and doing this over time. This is going to take years, right? So make efforts to go into diverse communities and be taught by Black leaders and volunteer in the community, right? And expose your children to all of that and expose yourself, right? It's going to take time, but until you do it and you start to do it more and more and more, and you just get lots of practice with it, that's where you're going to notice it starts to get easier and it starts to become more authentic. But you've got to just try. You've got to be okay with being scared, with being uncomfortable, with being terrified, right? You've got to be okay, and you've got to be willing to listen, make mistakes, acknowledge your mistakes, apologize for your mistakes, and then keep trying. I equated it on my Instagram stories like riding a bike, or learning a new skill. It wouldn't, we can't just say we're gonna we're terrified for failure, so we're never gonna try to learn, right? We don't do that in other situations, so we can't do that here, right? Not trying is not an option if you're really committed to this work. So try, be willing to make mistakes, be willing to apologize and listen, okay? And take your ego out of this. This is not about you, boo-boo, okay? Although it feels like it, it's not about you, right? And you've got to be willing to make mistakes, right? None of us have all the answers. We are all human. We are all trying to figure this out, okay? So if we can come from that place, people will be more willing to accept our mistakes and more willing to teach us, right? But we've got to be teachable. We've got to. And being defensive, being on guard, being rationalizing, saying, oh, that your feelings are valid, but, okay, all of that defensive stance is not going to get you anywhere, okay? So be willing to make mistakes. Be willing to feel guilty, okay? Acknowledge that, like, I'm guilty. That's a good thing. That means you're really looking at yourself. You're really looking at the world around you. Sit with that. Sit with it a little bit longer and then take action, okay? Don't wallow in it, okay? Don't have no pity party. I don't want any of y'all having no pity parties around here, okay? Take action. Do what you can, because when you know in your heart you are committed to this work and you are taking action, you are taking a stand, you will be able to sleep better at night, I promise you. That guilt will slowly subside. But until you confront it, until you acknowledge it, until you accept it, you haven't done the work. Peace.